guys, this is John from Next Level Games. I just want to show you guys my Kaiju Zoodiac deck profile. The Megatins just came out, so it's super cheap to play the deck if you want to see some runtime with them just for the last few weeks before the September ban list. So yeah, we'll get right into it. So the main deck is 42 cards. If you want to skip about a minute and a half or 2 minutes ahead, you can see just the profile. I'll just lay it all out first before I explain any of the ratios or some of the other options you can take a look at. So yeah, let's go right into it. So 2 Thoroughblade, 2 Rat, 3 Whiptail. I'll explain why this is 2 and not 3 in a minute. And then 2 Ram. Go 3 Tanky, 3 Barrage, of course, and the 1 combo. Then we'll go 3 hand traps. So 1 Ash, 1 Ghost Ogre, 1 Maxi, 2 Cyclone, 2 Desires, and then only 1 Shuffle Reborn, 3 Strikes, and then a bunch of good cards here. 1 Book of Moon, 1 Pianissimo, 1 Chalice, 1 Torrential, 1 Soul Charge, 1 Raigeki, 1 Imperial Order, 1 Ring of Destruction, 1 Blazing Mirror Force, 1 D-Barrier, 1 Breakthrough Skill, and lastly 4 cards for the Kaiju package: the Thunder King, Humongous, Gamma Seal, and Interrupted Kaiju Slumber. So that's the main deck at 42. For extra deck, it's just going to be 3 Dryden, 3 Broadbull, 2 Chakanine, 2 Tiger Mortar, Borbo, Hammer Kong, Dweller, Emerald, and a Mrs. Radiant. So that's the profile. So the reason I play the cards that I do and the numbers I do is pretty specific actually. So the 2 Thoroughblades, I know a lot of people run 3, but I actually, even though it's pure Zoodiac, I want to cut the non-essential Zoodiacs, as it were. Which Thoroughblade, although it's really good for the draw power, I usually just barrage for it. I don't like to normal it if I don't have to. I usually want to normal the Rat or something like that. So just trying to keep the deck down below 40 or near 40. I just want to cut this guy down. And then 2 Rat, obviously, if you could play 3, you'd play more. 3 Whiptail, because you need attack power, and it's a good out to a lot of rogue decks. And then I used to try to play 2 Ram, but honestly, like, you don't really need it. Like, there's 3 Barrage and 3 Tanky to get the cards that you really want to normal, and not this guy so much. So then the 3 Tanky and 3 Barrage is pretty self-explanatory. I usually side out the Tanky almost every games too, so kind of up to you if you want to do that. And then 3 Barrage is, best card. If anything's gonna get banned, it's gonna be this one first, so you might as well play it while you can. And combo, just recycle. Some people actually play 2 combos because it helps your resource management a lot in the Zoo mirror match in particular. But also just not having to worry about saving your XYZs is just good. 1 of each hand traps, you can't draw 2. Like 2 Ash doesn't do anything. 2 Ogre kind of ruins your hand, especially if you have 2 Ogre going first, because if you could use it, it wasn't going to do anything, and now you have 2 that really clog up your hand. So playing 1 of each, I think, is the best way to go for, at least for game 1, and then you still have the Kaiju package to go second as well, so you don't have to worry too much about siding too many hand traps, because if they were going to make a really good board, you might have an out to it. And 2 Cyclone, just because True Dracos are a really good deck, I think, so you don't want to get, you would definitely want to banish those spells and traps so you're not blowing up your board. 2 Desires for extra draw power. Only 1 Shuffle Reborn. If I could fit more, I would. And honestly, if you take out the Kaiju package, this is probably the first card I'd go 2 of. But for right now, I only want 1. And I found a lot in testing that, like, if you only have Zoo monsters, like, your board's not that strong. Like, they really need to be supported by your spells and traps. So having too many monsters can be a bad thing. So that's why I kind of cut these guys down as much as I could without losing the consistency and just the strength of the engine. So we'll just scooch these out of the way to our support traps. There's a sack charge for basically just winning games. There's Torrential, it's limited for a reason. I play 1 Chalice, 1 Pianissimo, and 1 Book of Moon. I tried to play 2 Chalice, but with True Dracos and Masterpieces running around a lot, it's not quite as good. It's really only good against the Dynamite Knight, at least, so I don't mind playing it. Pianissimo I prefer over the My Body right now because it affects your monsters, not the Masterpiece. So I think it's a little bit more alive. So even though the My Body can be against another Zoo player, it's a little bit better. Or against Dino, sometimes it's really good. I just prefer this overall because the hardest matchup should be either the Mirror or just True Dracos. And Book of Moon, it's a one-of. I mean, just play it. It's pretty good. Now, a lot of people wonder why I play the Blazing Mirror Force and the Ring of Destruction. You pay a lot of life points in this already with the 3 strikes, so you kind of have to be careful playing these cards. But the reason I do is because, especially with Thoroughblade down to 2, there's not that much attack power that can be generated from this deck by itself. So even with the Kaijus to support you, I find that dishing out 8,000 in one turn is really hard. So if you can cut it down to maybe like 5,000 life points or 6,000, or if you're lucky, like down just like 3,000 life points, even though it burns both of you, it makes it a lot easier to OTK the next turn if you can protect yourself, which with the number of spells and traps, you usually can. So I like these a lot. A Ring of Destruction though has a errata where you can only do it on your opponent's turn, only with their monster, and then you take the damage first, and you can't kill them. So preferably you want to use this as early as possible. So sometimes it's not live, but for when these cards work, it really makes your OTK potential a lot better for that following turn without having to put in Gagaga Samurai. And Imperial Order, just to sack people. Raigeki. This is actually supposed to be 2 barriers originally. I actually sold my other barriers because the reprint was coming, so I don't have the second one right this moment. But Breakthrough Skill has been a really good option. I only play this really because it's an ulti, but it ended up working out really well because on their turn you can usually negate something. Especially with dinos, you can negate like an Oviraptor or a Denglong, just so that it's just, without the Yang Zing pillars, it's just a level 5 tuner, so it's not quite as scary. And then on your turn, you can negate a VFD on standby phase, or you can negate, if there's a monster and spell immune masterpiece, you can just negate it and like it won't interrupt you so much. So this one's actually surprisingly been good in testing. Originally, though, it was supposed to be 2 barriers because if you go against Zoos or Invoked or something like that and you have a D barrier, I mean, they stop playing for a turn, so you can't overvalue that. So we're only playing the 4 Kaijus in this particular build. The main reason is because if you top deck the Slumber, the ideal thing to do is to resolve it. Obviously summon 2 of the Kaijus. Sometimes you're going to give yourself the Humongous instead of the Thunder King, just because, especially if you know you can out this by easier means, it's because it's an Earth type, so it can go into Mrs. Radiant. And then the next turn, say you summon these 2, next turn you can banish this from your grave to search a Thunder King, or whatever 3rd Kaiju you have. So in my opinion, this is a little bit more consistent than having the second one, because if you go through the exact play I just said, but you had the 5th card, then there's a small chance that you're going to top deck that completely dead draw. Like you can't even destroy it to search another one. By whatever means, like Twin Twister or whatever. Like there are no Twin Twisters, no diagrams in here. Like you're just really stuck with that card. So I think this is a little bit more consistent for game 1, which is kind of what I was pushing for. So yeah, and I also chose the 42 cards. I thought that was just a minor adjustment that made a big difference, because I found that when in 40 cards, you're kind of drawing, if you drew like, 3 Zoo cards, these guys aren't like the most high attack power guys, so your board's not always that big or that present. If you you need spells and traps to really support your board. So if you have like 3 Zoo cards in your hand, like only like 1 or 2 of these other ones, then it's not ideal for sure. So to minimize that, I just upped the trap count. So I added the D barrier, which would turn into a breakthrough skill, and at the time that I made that adjustment, this is actually a compulsory evacuation device instead of the Ring of Destruction. I switched it with the ring though. It's a good adjustment. It's not just for the burn, but also the compulse. Most of the things that you really want to compulse, other than the Kaijus, I guess, like you don't really want to give it back to them. Like if you want to this is an easy out to masterpiece, but if you compulse it, then they get it back and they're going to tribute it the next turn, and it's going to give you some problems. Or if you give them back certain other cards, like in dinosaurs, you can maybe hit an XYZ monster, but then they can make it again. So a lot of people only play like 1 VFD, for example. So if you give it back, there's a chance they're gonna bring it right back on top of you. At the very least, You know, if you hit a Dryden with a Compulse, that's still another Dryden you have to deal with in the late game if you can't OTK the guy. So I thought this is the better adjustment, just to actually destroy the monster and get rid of it, so it's not so much of a problem, as well as burning the damage to kind of get the difference between, you know, whatever life points and 0 a little bit closer, so you can just push for game with the small zoo guys. So yeah, this made it so that the ideal usually opening hand is 1 or 2 zoo cards, and even 1's fine, assuming there's no hand traps, and then like as many of these traps, or you know, hand traps, a kaiju, a few of these, you know, like Imperial Order or a Geki, just something to sack your opponent with. And that's it. You know, you keep the board as simple as possible. So by increasing the trap lineup, I found that you get the ratio that you want in an opening hand a little bit more often. Plus with desires, you don't lose that much in consistency. And sometimes having a few extra cards does help with desires. If you don't want a few extra traps, means, you know, that's, you know, up to 5 or like 8% or whatever chance less that you'll just banish your zoos, which you don't want to do. So yeah, the 42 cards I think was a good adjustment. If you don't want to play the Kaiju engine, you can swap these out with just, you know, if you take out these 4, you're down to 38. I'd honestly play a second Shuffle Reborn and either a second Chalice or a second Pianissimo, or maybe I'll try the My Body again and just have like a lot of different kind of quick play cards to keep your opponent guessing. But I didn't like it because if there's like a Crystal Wing made from the Wind Witches on board or the Masterpiece on board, you know, you have to expend like half your zoo guys almost and a lot of resources into getting over that one monster. It's just much simpler to have the Kaiju engine. So we'll just go over the extra deck really quick as well. There's not too much to say on it. The 3 Dryden is pretty standard. You know, it's how you play in your opponent's turn, which is pretty important. 3 Broad Bull in pure zoos, it's definitely. I've tried to cut this down once or twice before, and like every time I do, I miss it. Like, you think that you don't really need to go in a third one, or that you can just combo it back, but say, you know, I sometimes try to take it out for a Chakanine or maybe a second Hammer Kong or a second Borbo just for more names, but I always end up missing it, so I wouldn't really change this right now for pure. In my True Draco one, you'll notice I'm thinking about playing it at 2. It's not quite as important, but with this many zoo names, you definitely need it. And then 2 Chakanine, I'd like to bring this up to 3, and there's 2 Tiger Mortar. Some people want to bring this up to 3 as well, but I find the Chakanine is way more important. So there's a 1 Borbo, 1 Hammer Kong. The Dweller has been really useful, but one thing I was thinking of doing is taking out the Dweller for a 3rd Chakanine, or taking out an Emerald for the 3rd Chakanine, and taking out one of the traps for another Zoodiac combo. Because I find that with Emerald, you're basically shuffling away these guys and maybe a Rat, which your combo can do just as easily, if not even easier in some cases. So I was thinking about maybe taking out one of the traps like Breakthrough Skill, and yeah, just putting that in. It helps a lot in the mirror to have the second combo, and overall it's just a good recycler, so it's pretty reliable. Those are the only things I think about changing. The 1 Mrs. Radiant's been good. You know, if you really need a second one, you just, when it dies, just bring it back. And it's worth to risk it, even if it gets banished by Whiptail or something like that. You usually don't need to go into too many Mrs. Radiant plays, but it gives you a lot more damage, it gives you stronger boards, so it is good, but I really wouldn't bring that up. I would really only try to find a way to bring the Chakanine up. So these are some side deck options for you guys. First and foremost, I usually side the second Slumber just to increase my odds of drawing it. There is a chance of bricking it more, but then it's more worth the risk when you know you're going second for sure. And if you really like the Kaijus, you can actually even add in the 4th name to give it a little bit more consistency, or like, you know, seeing it more often, and just having more names is always good. So this brings it up to 6 total in the deck if you side those in. Against pure True Draco, or the Wind Witch one as well, if they draw a lot, you know, the best way to deal with that board is like either a Black Rose Bomb, which is not available in this deck, or Zaphion works well enough, given they don't have Strike. It just shuffles away all their spells and traps, and then, you know, it stays on your board. It's indestructible, so you usually don't take any damage for the next turn after you resolve the Zaphion. It gets shuffled away on standby, and then you can just play normally again after that. So this one's pretty good. And then I play one Ash and one Ogre in the main. I double them up when I know I'm going second. Like I said, when you don't know if you're going first, I don't like risking having two of the same copy. But when you're going second, you know, improving your odds of drawing one is worth the risk of drawing two, in my opinion. So I usually have minimum these three all the time. These ones are just kind of some ideas. And barrier is always good, especially against a Zoo mirror match. So, you know, however many you can fit. Same thing with my True Draco Zoo build. I like to have stuff against graveyard decks. So Lightsworn is a very popular deck. You know, it's budget, it's fun, I get it. But it can also really sack you. So I play the Defissure, Macrocosmos, and Soul Drain. This is primarily actually for dinos though, which is probably, you know, especially with the VFD and like some other like really strong combos, they can, you know, surprisingly get advantage on you. So having these cards, especially if you're going first, takes that away. And then I also note that with Defissure, it banishes monsters. So when you overlay cards, the materials do not count as monsters. So if you have like a Trident with like a Broad Bull and you detach it to destroy something on the field, that Broad Bull still goes to grave. So it doesn't have the element of surprise like, you know, the traps do. You can wait for them to try and activate, let's say, like a Litho or something else and flip it on response, and just like nullify the babies that they were going to destroy. This one's less of a surprise factor, but you can work your way around this one a little bit easier. So it's still definitely worth running. And then another good hand trap for True Dracos, or, you know, especially True Draco Zoo even, like the Droll Unlocks, you know, wait for the first thing, just hit the Droll Unlock on the opening hand, and it puts you in a really good spot going second. You know, this can be, honestly, this kind of a stun card can like steal games. I haven't been playing this so much recently because I find a lot of people are playing the Wind Witch engine, so even if you droll them, they still end up getting you know, an invincible Crystal Wing. So this can be good, or sometimes drawing it mid to late game. I don't really like it because it doesn't do enough then, right? So you're kind of banking that you'll see it in the opening hand. But when it works well. Another thing I've been siding for my locals personally is actually 3 Ghost Reaper Winter Cherries and siding the 1 ABC Dragon Buster. When I side in the Buster Dragon, I usually take out well, actually, it actually depends a lot on the day, but usually I take out the Dweller because if you're gonna resolve a Reaper, the Dweller doesn't always come up. But I guess ABC's Dweller is still really good, so you can take out some other stuff like maybe the 3rd Broad Bull if you think you know, if you resolve a Cherries, you'll have better resource management than them anyway. So you can take out either a Broad Bull, sometimes an Abyss Dweller or Emerald. I just, you know, even though Dweller is really good against ABCs, you don't always have a rank 4 option. Sometimes it's just easier to keep it simple and go for the main, the zoo guys. And then lastly, for Pendulums and for sometimes against True Dracos, it is a really good side as well. You just have to be careful what you hit. But having the Unending Nightmares, really good. It's not once per turn, so it doesn't matter if you're paying life points a lot. If you sub these in though, like, just be careful because you do have Ring of Destructions and Blazing Mirror Forces in this profile, so you gotta consider whether or not it's worth it. But this card is just really powerful in its own way, so I highly recommend it. So this is just another combo you can do with any zoo card. It's pretty unideal, so I'm just going to show how you do it with the least valuable zoo card, which is Thoroughblade. On its own, you know, probably does the least. Sometimes you want to make a Trident with just a Ram in defense mode to protect yourself, especially against board wipes. But this is another thing you can do, just to have a Trident and a Hammer Kong with material for next turn. So we're going to normal the Thoroughblade, overlay into Hammer Kong, and then straight into Broad Bull. Activate to search. You can usually get a Whiptail, or if you wish, you can also just search a Rat for next turn, which sometimes it's a bit more useful, even if it's just a foolish burial like a Zoodiac combo in the graveyard. So for right this moment, I'll just do the Rat. And then we'll go into the Chakanine. We'll activate to summon the Hammer Kong. Its effects are negated, so you don't have to detach at end phase. So it's pretty useful. We're going to go into Tiger Mortar and activate to attach either of these guys. I I usually just do the Broad Bull because I only have 2 Chakanine in the deck, so it's not like I'm going to run out. I'll run out of this before I run out of this, theoretically. And then lastly, into the Trident. I don't do this play too often, but I do like it against the mirror match because you can expect cards like Forbidden Chalice or Pianissimo, and this kind of helps shuts that off because Hammer Kong can be the only one targeted on your opponent's turn. So they can't Whip Tail to equip, they can't do Pianissimo on any of their guys. If they chalice something, it has to be the Hammer Kong. Book of Moon, same thing. So sometimes they can come in pretty relevant. Obviously against a board wipe, you're just kind of screwed there without the Ram. But this is another 1-card play that gets you a little bit of board presence and gives you a card, either a Whip Tail for your opponent's turn or a Rat for your following turn. So this is the standard Rat and Barrage play. If you don't know how to maximize it, it'll be end board Trident and an Emerald or a Dweller and a Mrs. Radiant. So let's go into it. We'll go normal the Rat to pitch the Ram, and we'll overlay into Hammer Kong. I'll activate to summon the other Rat. And then here you go Chakanine first, which is pretty important. We'll activate to summon the Ram. At this point, before you try to target the Ram, you really gotta do the Broad Bull search first. We'll activate and just search a Whip Tail. It'll be discarded for Thoroughblade, but I like this just so you can target mortar it. I'll go activate Barrage, targeting the Ram to summon Thoroughblade. Ram will summon the Chakanine, and Thoroughblade will discard the Whip Tail to draw 1 card. Now at this point, the Chakanine's effects are not negated, so you can go Tiger Mortar and activate. I usually equip the Broad Bull here, but it doesn't really matter. You can also technically do anything that's not the Ram. So up to you what you want to do. You can do the Whip Tail if you want, but it won't make too huge of a difference. Now you can go Chakanine activate into the Ram. So that's why it doesn't matter, because you're going to detach it anyway. Here, we're going to link up into Mrs. Radiant. And now we have 3 level 4s there. Whoops. That was a mistake, actually. You link these up and go Mrs. Radiant. Now you have 2 level 4s. Here, you can make an Emerald, which I prefer for the additional draw. Or like I said in my previous video, you can also make Abyss Dweller if you think that's more relevant. We'll go Emerald here, and lastly, we'll go Trident in the other link zone. Now you'll activate Emerald and shuffle the way back. Usually you want to do the Rat, the Hammer Kong, and the Tiger Mortar. Since in Pure Zoo we'll have 3 Chakanine, I don't think it's quite as important, but it's up to you what you want to attach to there. Or what you want to shuffle away, rather. So shuffle those away and draw an additional card. So your 2 cards netted you 2 in the hand, and then Mrs. Radiant, a Trident, Emerald, and hopefully a Barrage to survive till your next turn. So that's our Pure Zoo / Kaiju Zoodiac deck profile. The difference between them is really just 4 cards, which is just the Kaijus and the main of the side. So it's easy transition between both of them. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope it helps you build your own decks. If you have any feedback for us, please let us know, or if you want to make suggestions on the next deck profile you want to see, or another kind of combo tutorial, drop by in the comments again, and hopefully we can help you out. And as always, please like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks, guys.